Hi, everybody. This is Tom Wilkins. Welcome to Tomcast. And I've got a special friend here for this particular episode. This young man, he looks like he's about 13 years old to me, but I know he's probably more than 13. But Congressman Bruce Westerman. Bruce, welcome. Well, can I call you Bruce? Well,
You always call me Bruce.
Yeah,
you can
call
me
you for
Bruce.
dinner,
Sure,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being here. You're home now for a few days anyway, and you've been getting around doing some different things in town. And you grew up. Let's go back to the beginning here. You grew up you went to school at Fountain Lake, is that right?
Yep. All 12 years. I started before they had kindergarten. But,
Before
grade through 12th grade.
preschool? Wow, that's been a long time ago. And you grew up, you graduated from Fountain Lake. Then kind of what happened?
I went to the University of Arkansas, where I got an engineering degree. I met my wife, and I played football for the Razorbacks for 4 years.
There's a legend right there. Just talking about football. I almost had a scholarship at playing football for the Razorbacks, but my parents wouldn't let me move from Wisconsin down to Arkansas. And so I had to forego that myself, but went on to play a lot of football myself. But I heard that you were legendary at that's what they said. That's the rumor floating around. Of course, that was by your wife. But but anyway.
My wife wouldn't say that. Maybe my mom, but I don't know.
Okay, all right. And you have 4 children, right? How old are they right now?
4 children. We just had a round of birthdays, but we're 23, 25, 27, and 29 right now.
Boy, do I feel old.
And I feel old. They were just little kids not too long ago, but my youngest, Asa, he just graduated from University of Arkansas at Monticello. He played football down there, a boll weevil.
Really?
Yeah, and he got his first job. He's coaching at Bryant Junior High and High School and teaching history over there. So proud of him.
Absolutely.
And the other 3 are out of college and gainfully employed. My daughter's married, and she and her husband live up in Northwest Arkansas. She works for J.B. Hunt. She's an industrial engineer. And
cool.
Her husband, Hayden Beckwith, who was a high school sweetheart from Fountain Lake.
Oh, wow.
He's a mechanical engineer with Marshalltown Tools up in Northwest Arkansas.
Now, you worked for Mid-South Engineering at one time, right? For 20-something years, 22 years or something like that, I read, I think.
Yeah, even, I don't think it's counted in the total, but when I was home in the summers, I worked there a couple of summers as a kind of an internship, summertime job. Love that kind of work.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I could go back and do it today if I still got enough brain left to do it. I think you lose brain cells when you go to DC.
Did you know Morris Cash?
Yeah, I know Morris well.
Morris was a great guy, and I was involved with Morris a lot with the Veterans Organization.
He drew the plans for the monument down there.
The original monument, he sure did. And I remember those days, and it was an experience. In fact, I remember recently, I should say, not recently, you were down there at one of our festivities, as I call it, one of our memorials, and got to get up and speak a little bit. And
I always think of Morris when I go down there. You know, he was an Air Force veteran.
Right.
But Morris was a very talented person. He learned how to draw when you drew things by hand. And when
the old days, right?
Yeah, when computerized drafting came along,
mm-hmm.
his drawings were actually more pleasant to look at than something you drew off of a plotter. And he had just an artistic ability to make wonderful drawings, and the way he could letter and everything. I had to take drafting as an engineering class, and I could draw stuff. I can still sketch things, but Morris was he was top tier in drafting.
He was, and what a beautiful monument that we have down there, and how that has grown over the years is just really a story in itself.
Yeah, it's a great asset to have here in Hot Springs.
I don't know. Are you going to be back in town, do you think? Boy, it's pouring down rain outside.
Yeah.
Just you brought in this weather. We needed it.
Well, I would take the rain today. It's been hot.
It has been hot. Is it hot in Washington or?
Yeah, I
I'm
spoke
talking
down.
about the weather now.
Yeah, I spoke down at the Maurice bathhouse this morning. We did
Okay.
an event down there, and it was hot and humid.
Woo.
And I had a coat and tie on, and they were saying you're tough to wear that down here.
Yeah.
I said, well,
Yeah.
DC is about as hot and humid as
Yep.
Arkansas is.
It sure
You get-
is. Yep.
I don't know if you ever get used to it, but you learn how to deal with it.
That's right. Okay, let's talk about after you got out of college. Then, what did you do? You went to work or for Mid South, or
No, I was the plant engineer for Riceland Foods in Stuttgart.
wow,
And I remember when I was graduating from the University of Arkansas, I went on all these different job interviews, and I had a job offer from a company called Halliburton over in Duncan, Oklahoma. I had a job offer from Cargill Foods. It's actually Neutrina Feeds, which is a division of Cargill. And I think they told me I was starting Kansas City and then go to Memphis and Dallas and then who knows where else. And I had a job offer for Riceland, which was and I had a couple other job offers, but the one in Arkansas was with Riceland, the lowest paying job offer I got, but it was in Arkansas. So
so you stayed here.
I
huh?
stayed here and lived down in the Delta for a couple of years, got married during that time, and then moved to Hot Springs in 92, back to Hot Springs.
92. Wow. Now, was this your high school sweetheart, or?
No, yeah, Sharon and I met our freshman year of college.
Okay.
She's from Van Buren, and you hear all these romantic tales of how you met your bride or your groom,
Right.
and I saw her sitting across the cafeteria one day, and I just thought I'd like to take her out.
Yeah, she's cute, huh?
Yeah, she
Yeah,
went out.
yeah,
She
yeah.
went out with me, and the rest is history. I
Oh,
guess.
wow. Wow. Well, you have a lovely wife. Met her several times, and she's probably your better half for sure.
Probably better 2/3.
Yeah. Okay. So when did you get the itch to get into politics?
Tom, I don't know if I ever had an itch to get into politics, but I moved back here, was working at my engineering job, which I really enjoyed that. Started having kids. Seemed like Sharon was pregnant all the time there for 7 or 8 years, and then I did take kind of took a detour, and I left Hot Springs and went up to Connecticut to go to graduate school. But got back, and it wasn't long till my oldest son was starting elementary school out at Fountain Lake, where I went to school, and they'd had some issues out there with the school and the millage rate and just a lot of stuff going on, and I had people talk to me about running for the school board.
Wow.
Now, my dad had been on the school board, and I knew that was not a fun job to do, but it's also, if you care about a community and want to get involved, the school board's a great place to get started. And I did that, and we were able to get a lot of issues resolved and get the millage situation fixed, which had been like a 20-something year court battle going on. And that got settled, and we built some new facilities out there, fixed a drainage problem that was causing the school to flood every time a big rain came through. And I was serving as the president of the board. And if you remember, Arkansas used to have very strict term limits in the state legislature.
Right.
And Bill Samples was term limited out as a state representative. So some folks said, why don't you run for the legislature? We think you did a good job on the school board. And I said, well, I haven't got time for that. I'm raising kids. I've got a job that's pretty demanding. And they said, well, it's just a part-time job.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I remember I got this manual that said running for state legislature in Arkansas. The Farm Bureau had put this manual out. So it just like a step-by-step guide on how to run for the state legislature. And so I went through that, set up a campaign account. I put some of my own money in it. I read the fine print, and if you don't spend it, you can pay yourself back. You know,
Wow.
kind of a tightwad. But, filled out the paperwork, and nobody filed to run against me.
Wow.
So my first term in the state legislature, I had neither a primary opponent nor a general opponent, and I was out working in the yard the night I got elected. And I think Sharon said something about your name just scrolled across the TV that you won
You won your race?
yeah, I won my uncontested race. But again, I had this mindset that it was a part-time job, which in theory it is a part-time job.
Right.
But I get a letter in the mail addressed to the Honorable Bruce Westerman, and Sharon got a kick out of that. It said orientation is such and such day in Little Rock. Well, I had an experience of going to the school board orientation, which was more of a how to toe the line session. Like, I remember they had these videos. I'm going to say the guy's name was Bob, but Bob was a doofus in the video, and the basic theme was "Don't be Bob."
Don't be Bob.
And
Okay.
it was like, don't question what the administration wants to do. And I looked at that and thought, I didn't need to waste a day of my time coming to an orientation to do something that I wasn't going to do. I was probably going to be more like Bob than not. There's some things needed questioned. But anyhow, Sharon said, you probably should go to this. I said, I really don't want to, but I went there, and that's when I realized a little bigger deal than I had first thought about running for the state legislature. Yeah. And people were saying, you're that guy that didn't have an opponent. So that happened, and because of those strict term limits, there's no institutional knowledge. Like the most senior member of the House would have just finished their fourth year,
right,
and were getting ready for their fifth and sixth year, and then they would be gone. So the institutional knowledge was with the bureaucrats and the lobbyists, and it was an extremely steep learning curve to go from not knowing anything about being in the legislature to, they don't gradually walk into it. It just starts.
Damn, there it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I want to write a bill. How do I do that? What's the process? It was a really steep learning curve, but in an effort to keep a little bit of institutional knowledge, the Republican caucus wanted to have the minority leader in their second term. Mm-hmm. That way they could go through the second term, and then they could mentor somebody in their third term, and you would keep a little bit of institutional knowledge that way. Well, I got elected to be the minority leader at the end of my first term.
Oh.
Well, it was actually in March before the November election after my first term. And then that November, we flipped the majority. So I became the majority leader overnight and still didn't have an opponent in the primary or the general.
How do you do that?
I don't know.
That wasn't in that book. It was all about you got to run against this.
Yeah, you have to raise a lot of money.
Yeah.
And you got all these things you got to do.
Sure.
But I was fortunate to be able to come in when I did and kind of learn like I did. So I was the Republican majority leader with a 51 to 49 majority. As tight a majority as you can have, and that was quite an experience. And it wasn't long during that term when Tom Cotton decided he was going to run for Senate, and that opened up the congressional seat. Well, here come the usual characters again saying you should run for Congress.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've been around long enough. I've kind of figured this out now.
Yeah.
I was going to work over here in Hot Springs before I would drive to Little Rock. Sometimes I would finish up in Little Rock, drive back to the office and do work. I was working on weekends, and or on Saturdays and on holidays, just trying to keep up with the engineering
Right.
job and do the state legislature job. And I'd been around it enough to know that, Congress is a whole nother ballgame. That's a full-time job and then some. But I felt like um, it was an opportunity that I should take advantage of. When I was playing football for Coach Hatfield, he always told us there was no such thing as luck. He said what some people confuse for luck is simply where preparation meets opportunity. And I don't know if I was really prepared to be in Congress, but the events that had happened in my life and the position I was in and the seat came available, and
Hmm.
next thing I know, I'm sitting behind a big desk in Washington D.C. thinking,
Wow.
what did I get myself into?
Okay, let's stop right there for just a second. We're going to take just a little break here, and you can have some more of your tea over there. And no, that's coffee, right?
Coffee,
Coffee.
the strong
The
stuff.
the stronger thing, and we're going to rough them up a little bit during this little break. We'll be right back. This is Tom Wilkins and Tomcast.
Hello, everyone. I'm Susan Wilkins, and I'm thrilled to share an exciting new opportunity with you. Every life story deserves a keepsake. With professional video storytelling, we can help you capture your journey from the beginning until today. At Sweet Pea Productions, we provide a unique platform for you to create your very own legacy video, featuring some of your favorite old photographs and even music from your time up until today. Imagine the gift of sharing your life story in a beautiful personalized video that will be cherished by your loved ones for generations to come. For more information, please contact Tom Wilkins at 501-622-9570.
This is Tom Wilkins with Tomcast. My special person here sitting right next to me here is Congressman Bruce Westerman. As the lights are flickering right here, Bruce, I don't know what's going to happen. We may finish this in the dark. I don't know yet. But we talked a little bit earlier how you kind of made your journey up into Congress. Are you crazy, or what's the deal here? I mean, this is like big time, isn't it?
Yeah, it is big. It's the big leagues, and I joke with people sometimes, and they say, so my undergraduate degree is in engineering, and I got a graduate degree in forestry. They say, what's somebody like you doing in Congress? And I said, well, I played football in college, and I think I got hit in the head too many times. But we joke about it, but it is the honor of a lifetime
Absolutely.
to get to go there and serve. And it's I often compare it to playing football for the Razorbacks. As much as I would want to tell somebody what it's like to run through the A with the band playing the Razorback fight song.
Yeah.
And when I said that, I could feel the hair stand up on the back of my neck. And until you do it, you really can't imagine. And Congress is kind of the same way. I can try to tell you what it's like, but it's just one of those things you kind of have to experience.
Tell me a little bit about when you first got there. You've had a lot of experiences, I should say, during that time frame.
Things have changed a lot just since I've been in Congress. So John Boehner was the speaker when I got elected. Mm-hmm. We had one of the largest majorities that Congress has had in a long time. I think it was the largest Republican majority.
Right.
And you were a freshman, and you knew you were a freshman.
You got treated like a freshman, did you?
You got treated like a freshman.
Okay.
I mean, everybody's respectful, but
yeah.
Now with the top majorities and everything, you have freshmen coming in, like demanding meetings with the speaker.
Yeah. A little more forceful.
So it gave me an opportunity to really get involved in the committee process, to come back home and travel across the district. And, America is an amazing place. The 4th District of Arkansas is an amazing place. Mm-hmm. There's stuff here that I never imagined was in the 4th District. Amazing businesses, amazing people. And I've really got to travel from one end of it to the other and meet people all across the district. Also, I've traveled across the country and across the world meeting people in this job. And that's probably the highlight, is the different people you get to meet. And how special you realize what we have here is.
Hmm.
You know, you travel to some foreign countries, and I'm always ready to get back to the good old USA.
Right. Don't realize how good we really have it here, do you?
No, and how big everything is. I, I know when I worked at Riceland Foods, we used to fill uh, tank cars with rice 24/7,
Uh,
and I'm thinking, who eats all of that rice? And then
yeah,
that was just one rice mill.
well, sure.
Yeah, and I think most of that was going to make beer too.
Now you've been doing this, what, about 10 years maybe?
Yep, 10 going on 11.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, and obviously, the longer you've already learned, you got into the Congress, you learned where the bathrooms were, first of all. That's the important things, right? But then you progress in your job to the position that you're at today.
Mhm.
And that has been a journey, to say the least, right? Tell me just a little bit about that journey.
So when you go to Congress, you tell them what committee you want to be on.
Wow.
And again, this was when freshmen were freshmen.
So they don't tell you,
Well,
or they did back then?
there is a committee called the steering committee, and they
Right.
assign everybody to their committees. So I thought I wanted to be on the Energy and Commerce Committee, and one of the seasoned members said, "Well, it's not going to happen." And I said, "Well, you don't care about my qualifications?" "No, it's not going to happen. There's not a spot there. Pick something else." And I've got this distinction that I've had since I've been to Congress, and still have it, is I'm the only forester in all of Congress.
Really?
Yeah. So that's a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because if anything has to do with trees, people are going to come
Come to you.
to me about it.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden just became this the Lorax overnight of Congress, because I was the tree guy. And I got on the Natural Resources Committee, which I found I loved that committee. And, it was a blessing that I didn't get on Energy and Commerce. So I started off on Natural Resources. And Natural Resources has jurisdiction over things that I'm really interested in, like our forest, all of our public lands,
Right.
Water, especially water in the West, energy production, both onshore and offshore, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So not only migratory waterfowl, but also all kinds of wildlife refuges, and fishing, whether it's commercial fishing or recreational fishing, or even subsistence fishing, which we see with some of the tribal communities. All of that falls under the Resources Committee, along with all the tribal, we call it Indian and Insular Affairs.
Say that again.
Indian and Insular Affairs.
How you say that fast 3 times?
Yeah. So the Insular Affairs deals with the territories of the U.S. So
Oh, wow.
all 5 territories fall under our committee jurisdiction. So Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, and the Caribbean, and then over in the South Pacific, you got the Northern Marianas, Guam, and American Samoa. And then there's some other stuff. A couple of years ago, we re-upped something called the Compacts of Free Association, and these are agreements with the countries of Palau, Micronesia, and the Marshall Islands. And those are 20-year agreements, and it just so happened that while I was in my chairmanship of the committee, we re-upped those agreements, which is really a big deal, because those island nations are very strategic to our military and economic
Right.
positions in the South Pacific. So I've been to all of those places and met the leaders of the country, and worked with them. And in Arkansas, we have the largest population of Marshallese outside of the Marshall Islands. So it was neat to be able to go there. And a lot of the people that I met there had relatives that had moved to Arkansas. And all of those issues that I get to work on the Natural Resources Committee are things that I love. They're not always things you're going to see on the nightly news, or that the
Right.
cable channels are interested in talking about. But wildfire is one of those things that our committee deals with, and we've got a big bipartisan bill that we passed it when Los Angeles was on fire in January.
Right.
And it's over in the Senate now with bipartisan sponsors. And that should get to President Trump's desk soon. And I mean, that's just a small sampling of the things
For
we
sure.
work
And
on
those
the committee.
poor people, I heard on the news the other day that they're still trying to rebuild over there
Yeah.
and having all kinds of trouble.
Yeah. So the other thing, the big bill that we filed just before we left for the August work period was a permitting reform. It's called the SPEED Act.
Right.
It's
I've read
standardizing
information on that. That's
yeah,
interesting.
standardizing permitting and um, expediting economic growth, and it's basically revising the national permitting laws so that we can actually build things in this country again.
Right. I've read a bunch of information that you've been involved with, especially with veterans too. You co-sponsored a bill. I don't know when it exactly was, but with trying to help veterans get better care and quicker care. I think the word might have been used.
That's been a disappointment to me serving in Congress is to see how much trouble it is for a veteran to get the services that they were promised when they
Signed up.
Yeah, pledged their life essentially to defend this country, and the government said, okay, and here are the benefits you're going to get. And, I have somebody full-time on staff that deals with veterans and military affairs, and then I've got other members that help in supporting roles on that. And it's just very aggravating to me to hear from a veteran in need that's not getting the services that they were promised.
Right. And there's a lot more of that going on than you think, for
Right.
sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's a big deal. I'm currently I'm the chairman of the memorial we were talking about downtown, and I hear all kinds of stories from veterans all the time. I'm not a veteran. I grew up during that Vietnam era, and God pointed me in a different direction. But I've certainly honored veterans my entire life, and I have veterans in my family too. And so this country was founded upon veterans and people serving, in some cases giving their lives so that we could sit here and just have a conversation.
Right. We're coming up on, I think today we're 309 days away from the 250-year anniversary of the Declaration of Independence.
That's right.
And one thing I've really enjoyed about being in Congress is you're living around history. And I give these night tours of the Capitol, and it's caused me to go back and study history a lot more and maybe learn some of the special stories about the statues that are in the Capitol and the things that happened in the Capitol over the years. And it's just amazing. It makes me think, I've learned a lot more, and I've always loved history, but there's so much more to learn about the amazing foundations of this country.
Talk to me about the Big Beautiful Bill for a second.
So the One Big Beautiful Bill Act was probably the most significant thing I've worked on since I've been in Congress. And, one part of that was energy dominance, and that pretty much came through the Natural Resources Committee. We have jurisdiction over energy production on land and offshore, and also on mining, which when you talk energy anymore, you've got to talk mining. And there's such a huge demand for energy right now, and particularly for electricity with these data centers and AI. The timing was great to take issues that we've been working on for years and put them in the One Big Beautiful Bill as part of our jurisdiction in the Natural Resources Committee. Of course, it dealt a lot with tax policy. There was going to be a $4.5 trillion tax increase if we didn't pass the tax package that we got in the bill. There's issues with border security. We did a lot of funding for the Department of Defense in the One Big Beautiful Bill. And I think with time, people are going to realize this was a significant piece of legislation and did a reset in our country to put us back on a better path going forward. We had gotten so far behind in energy which in energy security, which is also national security, that we've got a lot of catching up to do. And then put the increased demand with AI and data centers on top of that, and we've got a lot of making up to do. And that's one reason I'm doing this permitting reform bill. We couldn't do that in the reconciliation bill, but it's going to take 60 votes in the Senate. It needs to be bipartisan, and I think we'll get there. But we've got to be able to approve projects quicker so that we can build them quicker.
Wow. And AI, as I was telling you when you walked in, I was talking about how the tech world has changed so much just in the past year.
Mhm.
It's just crazy how AI is taking over everything. Does that scare you at all? Or
Yeah, I've learned more about AI in the past 5 years. Of course, it's machine language. It's the foundations of AI have been around for quite some time. But the more I've learned about AI, it's one of those things I wish we'd never discovered it.
Yeah.
But the fact is, we have discovered it, and so have the Chinese and other people. And it can be a very powerful tool for both good and evil.
sure.
But one thing about AI is it takes an inordinate amount of energy. There's a new data center that Meta announced down in kind of north central Louisiana, maybe a little bit northeast. That's pretty close to the Arkansas border. This one data center is going to require 3 gigawatts of electricity. Now, to put that in perspective, Arkansas Nuclear One, the nuclear power plant, that's 1 gigawatt. So think about 3 nuclear power plants for one data center.
Why does it? I mean, I don't understand the energy part of it.
Well, you've got all these computers that are running, and the downside to computers is they create heat, and heat's not good for them. So you're creating all this heat as you're making the computations, and then you have to have cooling to cool the building back down, cool the components back down. So it takes a lot of energy to run the computers, and then a lot of energy to keep things cool. I spoke at a conference over in Norway last year, and one of the things I remember coming out of it was an energy conference, that when you do an AI search on your iPhone, it uses as much energy as it takes to power an electric vehicle a kilometer down the road.
Really?
And think of the billions of searches that go on every day on AI. And it's just growing and getting bigger. So this really started in the Obama administration. It was, under the guise of climate, it was an attack on our energy system here. And we've closed down lots of coal power plants, spent a lot of money to build wind farms and solar farms, which can't produce the volumes and the baseload energy like you need to grow your economy. It's on a different order of magnitude. And when we're talking about needing the equivalent of 3 nuclear power plants to run one data center, we're going to have to get real serious about this real quickly. Now, the good thing about the U.S. is we're blessed with energy resources. We've got lots and lots of natural gas. We got a lot of coal. We actually have a lot of uranium if we wanted to build more nuclear power plants, but we've kind of avoided that, and now we're behind the 8 ball. The last coal plant that was built in the United States was in the 4th District of Arkansas down at Fulton in 2010.
Wow.
So the United States hasn't built a coal-fired plant since 2010, and that's very efficient, latest technology coal-fired plant. It's 650 megawatts. It's massive. So for this one data center, you would need about 5 of those.
Wow.
That's the order of magnitude that we're talking about. Now, here's the other thing. While we've not built any coal-fired plants, last year China built 100 gigawatts of coal-fired plants.
Wow.
So that's one of those Fulton plants every other day that they're bringing online. They're building nuclear plants. They're really ramping up their energy production because, from the way I understand it, when you do the next crank on AI, it just uses that much more energy. And we're really in a Cold War race with China on who gets to what's called superintelligence first. And also, some of the experts say if you get to the superintelligent level of AI, that you can undermine pretty much anything, any kind of financial system, any kind of defense system or communication system.
That's kind of scary, isn't it?
It really is. That's why I say we've got to be serious about this now. We've got to put on our good old American innovation boots and suspenders and get to work.
Now, President Trump's really for doing what you're talking about now. I've heard him say that, we're going to win the AI race or whatever.
Yeah, when he talks about energy dominance, that all is part of it, and the national security and the AI race. But we've put ourselves in a precarious situation with the energy component.
Right. Okay, let me bring it back home for just a second. One of the things, we have a mutual friend, well, probably many, but Bob Driggers.
Yeah.
You know Bob.
Yeah.
Bob is the Archie Bunker of my friends. And no, Bob's a great guy. I'm just kidding. I would say that to his face, by the way. And he probably,
you probably are right now.
Yeah, right. Bob would be listening, I'm sure. But Bob has gotten me interested in the Army-Navy hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been a group, Dr. Porter has been active in that for many, many years, and several others throughout the land, or our community, I should say. About 3 weeks ago, we were able to take a tour. I don't know if you've been up there, but I know your people that work for you have, I think, gone along on the tour.
I was supposed to be on that tour, and I don't remember if I was sitting in an airport or back in D.C. waiting to vote on something, but I know
I think you said it was too far to walk up that hill.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure, but no. But we could have used you on that tour, because I thought, having my show downtown for all these years, I'd walk out the back door and that's what I saw with that, the main building, I call it. And when we walked into that building, it was like walking back 20, 25 years in history. And yet, when I looked up, the ceiling tiles were mostly gone.
Mm-hmm.
The paint was coming off the walls, and some of this is cosmetic, and I realize that, just because when you live in a house or don't live in a house, it starts to fall apart, and that was part of it. But a lot of it was vandalism too. Mm-hmm. People, unfortunately, had gotten into the copper wiring. And I heard stories throughout that the gentleman who was giving the tour told us about a lot of copper being stolen and just unique things in that. Now, your name came up several times as being a backer of what can we do? And I'm asking you, what can the federal government do, if anything, to help save that whole facility?
Well, I think the federal government plays a huge role in that. And I mean, that whole situation is a mess. I don't know how to describe it other than a mess.
Yeah.
And, somebody at some point in time had this bright idea of building a Department of Defense hospital on National Park Service land, which I'm sure that seemed logical at the time. But when that was transferred over to the state in the, I guess, late 50s or early 60s, in the legislation that Congress passed, it said if the state quits using it as for education or medical purposes, then it shall remit back to the Department of the Army. And the state decided a few years ago they wanted to quit using it. And the Department of Defense does not want the facility back.
Right.
There are way too many abandoned DOD facilities around the country. And we went through a time frame there where there was nobody using the facility. There was no security there. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, vandals got in there quickly. Well, from the street, you see the big building with the wings on it.
Beautiful.
You walk back behind and there's a whole other world back behind.
Yep.
I think 20 some odd, close to
buildings.
30 buildings
Yep.
in the back. A lot of them are dilapidated.
falling apart.
falling apart. They're fire hazards within themselves, and they're backed right up against the national park. So the first order of business was to get security there. And we were able to get some money in the National Defense Authorization Act, about $2 million a year for the state to come in and provide security.
Right.
That's been going on for a while. We've also got a plan worked out where the state is going to take requests for information from potential partners to come in and develop the project, and then they'll issue a request for proposal. And people can make proposals on how they would utilize the site, and the Park Service would have the final say whether that was congruent with the mission of the park. So there's a lot of checks and balances on doing something productive with the site. And in the meantime, we want to not only keep the place secure, but maybe start removing some of those old buildings in the back. So in this year's appropriation bill, I've got a request in for a little over $9 million to be used to do some remediation. Now we have to pass the budget when I get back to DC for that to take place. But we should start doing what we can to get the site in the best shape possible for a potential investor that would come in and do something there. The verdict's still out on what the final use will be for that site. And I've heard proposals from, leaving the center tower and taking those two wings off of the hospital.
Oh.
I will say a lot of people have gone in and looked at it with great ideas, and they came out saying, I think I'm going to go look somewhere.
It's the money deal.
Yeah. It's an old hospital. The rooms are small. If you were talking about making it for housing or for a hotel or something like that, it's just a tremendous amount of renovation. And plus, when you leave a building and turn the heat and air off, bad things start happening.
Absolutely.
And we all have the memory of the old Majestic Hotel and what happened at the other end of Central Avenue.
Yes, Congressman, I remember the Majestic like it was yesterday. I was with some friends and we were standing, I guess, across the street and watching the Hot Springs Fire Department try to get it under control, and it wasn't going to get under control. It was just, I think, decided, Ed Davis decided that it's probably just to let it burn because somebody was going to get hurt otherwise. And it was a very sad thing for Hot Springs. It's been very sad that we haven't been able to somehow negotiate some kind of a plan down there that's, again, we get back to money. We get back to money. And just a sad thing. I'm hoping that someday something will happen, that God will intervene in this thing and put the right thing at the right place at the right time. But it was, where were you when it burned? Do you remember?
I was at home. I remember seeing it on the news and, reading about it for quite some time and driving by. It was a very devastating fire. Now, that was terrible.
Yes.
But a fire like that in the old Army Navy hospital creates an imminent threat to the park, to the water of the park, which is, the reason we have Hot Springs National Park is because of the hot springs.
Yep.
And the runoff from that site, my understanding is, would mix with the thermal water. So it's very, very important that we keep that site secure and not have a big fire like that.
Right. And for many reasons, Chief Davis made a comment up there. I was standing next to him and he was saying, if the winds were the wrong way right here, it could take a lot of land and a lot of businesses. And certainly you don't want to see that happen. One of the things that I noted when we were up there touring around the backside of it, and a lot of people have never seen the backside of the main building, the hospital building. One of the guys looked up, he said, and it might have been my friend Bob Drigger said, that up there, that's the old bowling alley. I didn't know there was a bowling alley up there. Half the building's missing.
Yeah, I wasn't aware. I've heard about the bowling alley.
Okay, well, they won't let you go close to it because the end of the building just rotted off, as are some of the other buildings up there. And that's kind of what you alluded to earlier, is that some of them, whether you like it or not, are just going to have to be torn down Some of them could be rehabbed. But somebody smarter than myself are going to have to determine who or what's going to do that. But yeah, that whole mountainside is dangerous.
Right.
Dangerous.
And we need to take all precautions, and hopefully there'll be some good use that comes up that building can be used for, or eventually the site could be just returned to the park. Uh, it is a historic building, and I've not met hardly anybody that thinks it needs to come down.
Yeah.
But we need to find a use for it.
And it's like you said when we started this conversation about this, because I want your slant on it, that the right hand doesn't want it, the left hand doesn't want it, and because of the magnitude of money it would cost to fix it all back up. And so, and city officials from Hot Springs were on that tour. Bill Burrows and several others, and Daryl Mahoney, I believe, was there also from the county. And everybody wants to do something. It's going to take some leadership, though, to figure it all out.
Well, one thing to think about, and Hot Springs has set the example for the rest of the country on what's happened on Bathhouse Road.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid in the 70s and the 80s, there wasn't much going on Bathhouse Road. And as a result, there wasn't a lot going on across the street from Bathhouse Road. But we've seen all this effort to bring in private businesses into the bathhouses. I guess the Buck staff has continually operated. But if we get a tenant for the Maurice, then all of the bathhouses will have businesses operating inside them, or the visitor center. And that's a great success story.
Do you remember back many years ago, I remember watching Melvin Bell. Do you remember Melvin? Melvin had signed the leases for all that, and he really gave a lot of good vision. And Melvin turned out to be a pretty good friend of mine. He would come down inside my theater that was downtown at the time, and he'd say, I just don't understand it. He says, I want people to be fired up about this project I'm fixing it, because he was leasing several, if not all, of the bathhouses back in those days. And I remember being on the Arlington lawn and the big to-do about it, and it just that fell through because the economy got really bad all of a sudden, almost overnight. And it just Hot Springs has had a rocky history, to say the least, over the years, from the gambling days all the way, through currently.
But things are looking really good for the town of Hot Springs and for the national park right now. And through the Great American Outdoors Act, we're able to get about $31 million to be spent on the Maurice and some of the other bathhouses there. Bathhouse Road is going to be in great shape once the Maurice gets renovated, and hopefully somebody will come in and sign a lease on the Maurice, which does a couple of things. Number one, it saves cost for the federal government because they're not having to heat and cool and do the upkeep on the building anymore.
Right.
And then it brings a business in that's good for all of Hot Springs and for the bathhouse as well. I think that example that Hot Springs has set with these public-private partnerships, I know it's recognized all across the country, but I think there's even more that the Park Service can do with private businesses to enhance both the park and private businesses. And that may be a bright spot for the Army-Navy Hospital, where somebody wants to come in and instead of just operating something that's independent of the park, maybe operate something that goes along with the park. And as we look to renew the Great American Outdoors Act, which it expires this year, that's an emphasis that I want to put on it, is how to utilize those public-private partnerships even more.
I ran a place called, you remember Pleasure Park at all? It was out on 70 East, a big deal out there. I ran that for 9 years when I came to town. And then when I developed my show downtown, it was like a breath of fresh air because you could have shot a cannon down that street in those years, not hit anybody.
Mm.
And just recently in the local Sentinel Record, it was Mr. Harrison had an article in there and talked about things have gotten back to good again. And so we have made a huge recovery in the hospitality industry and tourism, and just fixing up some of the places of majestic property and up on the hill with the Army Naval Hospital, Navy Hospital, has to become one of our priorities, I think.
Yeah, and I think we can go from good to great as well.
I do.
Got some exciting things with the renovations on the Arlington. Some of those other buildings downtown that are getting some renovations done, and I think that's only going to draw more people in to do more things. But we need to figure out how to capitalize on the resources the park offers and what private developers will bring in on the private property, and I think marry those two together like we've seen in the bathhouses. I mean, the Superior with the brewery and the restaurant in it.
They've been very successful.
Yeah, the Hill Hotel with the restaurant and the boutique hotel. And I'm very excited to see what happens in the Maurice.
Well, we're going to take our last break here, and this will be a short one, but I'm going to invite Congressman to talk about where do we go from here. We'll be right back. Such a pleasure it is to be with my good friend and friend of the 4th District, Congressman, what's your name? Bruce Westerman. And how's your brother doing, by the way?
Well, I've got 2 brothers.
Well, I know Don. I know Don.
He's retired. You know, he was a principal out at Lake Hamilton.
Yep.
He did like a lot of public school employees. He retired and then he got another job. And then my little brother John, he works at Mid-South Engineering. He's an engineer.
Really? So it's all in the family, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, Bruce. Let's kind of wind this up for this particular segment. Where do you see the future of the 4th District going?
So I think the 4th District has a very bright future, and you know, for people who may not be familiar with where the 4th District is.
Right. Tell us about that.
Pretty much everything on the Louisiana line except for Chico County right over next to the Mississippi River. So you got all of that part of the southern part of the state, everything that borders Texas, halfway up the Oklahoma line, and it just loops around the south side of Fort Smith. And then you get over into Franklin County and Johnson County and up to Newton County. So if you've ever been to Hawksbill Craig, you know, one of the most photographed places in the state.
I haven't had the pleasure.
It's a beautiful place to walk into.
Okay.
It's in the upper Buffalo Wilderness area.
Oh, that's beautiful country, yeah.
That's still in the 4th District. So the headwaters of the Buffalo River are in the 4th District.
And you're an outdoors guy, right?
Oh, yeah.
You love that stuff.
I love that. I actually took my staff from D.C. up there last fall, and we did some hiking, and we didn't float on the river, but I wanted them to see the beauty of Arkansas.
Right.
But then you come down, I've got Polk County with Russellville and back down here to Hot Springs, taking part of Pulaski County, Jefferson County, and Pine Bluff, and then, you know, back down to the Louisiana line. So it's a large district.
I was going to say, that's a big area. How do you do it? How do you campaign like that in a district like that?
It's, I know there's much larger districts. I went up into Alaska and helped Nick Beggett's campaign last fall.
Oh,
you know, Alaska is a little bit larger.
A little bit bigger, yeah.
District. They say it's when you ask them how much bigger it is than Texas, they ask it high tide or low tide. It's massive, but it's a beautiful part of the state. I guess I'm biased, but I think I've got the most beautiful parts of Arkansas in the 4th District, and I get a variety of everything from the Delta to the Pine Belt to the Ouachita Mountains to the Ozark Mountains. All of that's represented in the 4th District. So from a tourism standpoint, the sky's the limit for the 4th District of Arkansas. You got Buffalo National Park, you got Hot Springs National Park, you got the Ouachita Mountains, the Ozark Mountains. You look at what the Walton family is doing over at Mena.
Right.
They're going to do a mountain bike trail that's accessible with the ski lift year round. No place else like it in the world. I love to fish. We've got some of the best fishing anywhere right here close to Hot Springs and really all across the state. But then you get down in the southern part of the state, and we've got maybe the largest deposit of lithium in the world.
That's like for batteries, right?
Yeah.
Well, am I
And-
smart or what? Yeah.
You're brilliant, Tom.
Yeah, thank you.
No, someday I might have a show called Bruce Cast if I keep up.
You know, yeah, okay. We'll think about that.
But
If your other job doesn't work out, right?
so tremendous opportunities with lithium. Our Arkansas is actually a resource rich state. When we talk about mining, lithium is one of those critical minerals that we import most of it right now.
Right.
But I think we've got opportunity for other types of mining here in the state. And we got this tremendous resource with our forest here. You know, Weyerhaeuser just announced a new $500 million facility down between Warren and Monticello.
Wow.
And, you know, talk about Hot Springs, we got Weyerhaeuser's Southern Region headquarters that's been here in Hot Springs since they bought the old Dirk's Forest Products Company back in 1969. So with the demand for energy, I think we're going to see more of all kinds of energy, even some woody biomass used for energy. That would be a huge benefit.
What is that now?
So you take residual materials from the sawmill or from logging operations, and you make energy out of it.
Oh, wow.
Now, we could do a whole show on something called biochar.
Well, and we will someday.
But just not today.
The Bruce Show, right?
Yeah. We might lose some of your listeners if we talk too much about biochar, but it's a really innovative technology that if this Fix Our Forest Act passes, it's got the Biochar Act built into it. And short version, you can take biochar and make energy. You can generate electricity, make liquid fuels, and your byproduct is a almost pure carbon product that you can till into the soil, and it makes your agriculture soil much more productive. It holds more water and nutrients, and it'll stay in the soil for thousands of years.
Now, did you know this 10 years ago when you started?
I knew a little bit about biochar because I'm a forester and an engineer.
Yeah.
But the research on it is really growing and developing, and we need markets for these low value materials, not only in the private forest of South Arkansas, but also out west where we have these catastrophic wildfires. We need to go in and thin the forest so that we take the fuel load away. And if you can have a useful product to make out of those thinnings, especially if it increases productivity of agriculture soil, and it also makes it much more water efficient, you get a lot of wins for doing something like that.
Wow. So is it true you know Smokey the Bear personally?
I have met Smokey the Bear.
Yeah.
A joke in the forestry community, his name should have been Bernie the Bear, because we need to do more controlled burns and thinning to keep the underbrush from getting so thick. You know, Tom, we lost 20% of the giant sequoias that are on the planet in about 2 years of wildfire. And I don't know why stuff like that doesn't make the news more.
Now, is that in California or what?
Yeah. So
okay.
you got these trees get confused a lot on the coastal areas, California, Oregon, and Washington. You got the redwoods, Sequoia sempervirens, the big trees, tall ones, and big around.
Yeah.
But you go into the Sierra Nevadas and you get up above about 4,500 feet of elevation, and you got the Sequoia gigantum, the giant sequoias, the General Sherman, these big iconic trees that they're not quite as tall as the redwoods, but in
Big
diameter and mass, they're bigger than the redwoods. And they're a very fascinating tree. They grow on about 70 distinct groves in California. it's almost like God drew a line around an area and said, okay, sequoias, you can grow in here, but not across the
Mm-hmm.
line. It's the only place in the world where they grow naturally. And over a 2-year time frame, we had fires in these sequoia groves that wiped out 20% of these trees. And that
Wow.
really is what got some of my friends across the aisle interested in doing more forest management. We went out and toured the giant sequoias, and you see this whole grove of trees that's just charcoal matchsticks. And it's heartbreaking to see that and to know that we know exactly why that happened. And we know exactly how to fix that on the other groves, but the permitting and the bureaucracy prevents the land managers from doing that.
Wow. Is government too big?
Yes. Yeah. It's I don't think our founders ever envisioned how big the bureaucracy would get. And it hasn't always been like that. Really, after the Great Depression and World War II is when the government really started growing.
Mm-hmm.
You had something called the Administrative Powers Act that got passed. And from that point on, you just saw the number of federal employees skyrocket.
Wow. Yeah, one or two last questions here, and we'll wind this up, Bruce. I know you've got a bowling game to go to or something. I forget what you said, but what is it like being in a climate where one party can get really ugly really fast? And how do you handle stuff like that?
Well, the best thing I've found is I've deleted social media off of my phone, and I don't have time to watch the news much.
Mm-hmm.
But I do read a lot of news. And the other part of it is there's a facade out there that's, I think, ginned up by the media, that it's always a constant fight.
One against the other.
But still, there are more bills that pass on suspension in the House, which means it takes a 2/3 vote. We pass suspension bills all the time, and nobody reports on that. There are factions on both the right and the left that really generate a lot in the news cycle, so that's going to get reported on a lot more. But just like that forestry bill, this is a big piece of legislation, and we worked real hard to make it bipartisan on something that we can agree on. The permitting reform is something that lots of people think we can't agree on, but I've got Democrat co-sponsor on it, and we're going to get a lot more Democrat co-sponsors on the permitting reform because everybody's interest can be met with permitting reform, whether you like traditional energy or new forms of energy. The bottom line is right now, nobody can build any kind because the permitting just throws a wet blanket on it. And the other thing is our public infrastructure is severely hampered by the permitting morass that's out there. To build a road or a bridge or dredge a river, build a port or an airport, all of that requires federal permitting. And it takes on average, it's something called NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act. If you do a NEPA permit, on average, it takes 4.7 years right now.
Wow.
On public infrastructure, it takes an average of 6 years. And there was a study that we referenced in a hearing not too long ago. It said that 6 years of permitting delay on public infrastructure is costing the taxpayers $3.7 trillion, which is a huge number. But if you think about all the roads and bridges and airports and transmission lines and everything else that gets built, that's probably pretty accurate.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, and of course, Congressman Westerman, it's been a pleasure having you here, not only as who you are, but as a friend. And you're a friend of the 4th District for sure, a friend of Arkansas. And your star has gone way, way up in a lot of people's eyes and will continue to do so.
Well, it's very, very kind of you to have me on, Tom, and congratulations. Talking about stars, didn't you get one put on the wall?
I did. I fought it, and some people decided they wanted to do it. And, what do you say? After a while, you go, well, maybe I have done a few good things. So
Well, congratulations.
thank you. And I appreciate you. You did a video for me, and it was very well received. And I owe you that $10 that I promised you for doing that. But ladies and gentlemen, this is Tom Wilkins, my friend, Congressman Bruce Westerman. And we hope you can come back again sometime and update us on some other adventures. Big Bruce's Adventures. We could call it that. What do you think?
There you go.
There
It's
you
got a ring
go.
to it.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Tom.
you being here very, very much. This is Tom Wilkins. Catch you next time.